Class, welcome to Unit 13, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. Now, there's external evidence citing that 1st John was used. Now, this is not, of course, biblical writers, but these are other Christians. 1st Clement, the letter of 1st Clement, AD 96, talks about, quote-unquote, perfected in love. The Didache, written between AD 90 and 120, has similar parallels of language. The Epistle of Barnabas, AD 130, talks about the Son of God come in the flesh, end of quote. Polycarp, AD 69 to 155, his lifespan, said, "Everyone who does not confess Jesus Christ to have come in the flesh is Antichrist," quoting from 1 John. Papias of Hierapolis, AD 150, used 1 John according to Eusebius. Eusebius, of course, claims to have read Papias, and he didn't even much like Papias, but we don't have Papias's actual documents. By the time of Irenaeus, 180, at least the 1st and 2nd Epistle of John are identified with the son of Zebedee. Clement of Alexandria speaks similarly. Origen is the first to mention all three epistles, and Dionysius of Alexandria insisted that the apostle wrote the gospel and 1st and 2nd and 1 John, and that he knew Dionysius knew about 2nd and 3rd John. Never is anyone other than the son of Zebedee ever referred to as the author of the epistles. Internal evidence, we see light and darkness, the concepts of life and death, truth, falsehood, love, hate, similar schemes of salvation. There are differences that some say indicate different authors, like key doctrines, terms that are used differently, words and expressions that aren't shared between the Gospel of John and 1 John. In other words, they're trying to argue that two different people wrote the Gospel and 1 John and the other letters. We, in 1 John 1:5, could refer to a Johannine school. This is as evidenced by Raymond Brown, the Catholic scholar who first laid forth the theory that John's students, called a Johannine school, wrote the letters and the Revelation. However, many of these supposed differences that occur between the Gospel and 1 John are present within the Gospel itself, if you look closely, according to Carson and Moo. The vocabularies of the Gospel and 1 John are more similar than Luke and Acts, and we know Luke wrote the Gospel and the book of Acts. The insistence upon a Johannine school is tenuous at best, according to Carson and Moo. The we passages, in their opinion, seem to indicate eyewitness testimony rather than a difference. The writer's tone and authority extend across the congregations. Just sounds like the same writer. Internal evidence, 2nd and 3rd John, the author refers to himself as the elder. This is not to be taken as a different person from the apostle. It would be totally appropriate for John, who was a young man in Jesus' day, back in the 30s, to now be an old man, and he's the elder John, writing in the mid-90s, at least Revelation. It would be appropriate for John to make this designation of himself if he were the last living apostle. Where was it written from? Tradition is consistent that the son of Zebedee moved to Ephesus and ministered there, and he died there. This is asserted by Polycrates of Ephesus in about 190, AD 190. If it's written in the early 90s, it would be written after the 4th Gospel. Gospel of John most likely was written 80 to 85. We saw this earlier in the semester. Probably the churches are in the same region as Ephesus. 1 John is silent on the matter. 2 John is sent to a local congregation that's referred to in the letter as, quote, the lady chosen by God, end of quote. 3rd John is sent to an otherwise unknown Gaius, who is confronting a problem with a powerful and arrogant person named Diotrephes within the church. 1 John, to address the secession of believers from the church and false teaching that confronts the church. In other words, this is the purpose. He's fighting proto-Gnosticism, this early Gnostic belief, this embryonic docetism that's beginning to emerge. And what does that mean? This is a belief that Christ's body only seemed docetism, or the Greek word to seem or to appear to be. It only seemed to be human, that he was really just a phantom or some celestial substance, not human. This is a belief that's important to Gnosticism for it to work, that Jesus could not have been God and human, because humanity is material in its substance, and it is evil, and only spirit is pure. See, it flies in the face of the incarnation, doesn't it? That Jesus is fully God, fully man. That's the Orthodox belief. The heresy of Cerinthus denied the deity of Jesus. Cerinthus was a Gnostic. 2 John, the purpose is to warn the congregation against admitting traveling teachers who espouse similar falsehoods as first discussed in 1 John. 3 John, the purpose is no particular heresy involved. Diotrephes is a powerful and arrogant church leader. He will not accept correction even from John. He appears to be attempting to wrest all local authority for himself. You see, church problems started early, didn't they? Origen mentions multiple epistles, but he seems unsure about some. We're talking about when these letters were adopted into the canon. Eusebius classified 1 John as acknowledged, but said 2nd and 3rd John were disputed. Eusebius himself appears to have accepted all three. All three are accepted by Athanasius and the Council of Hippo and the Synod of Carthage. So the contribution of these letters, together they demonstrate the importance of testing all attempts to rearticulate the gospel into some other form. It emphasizes the doctrine of assurance, distinguishing between the genuine and the spurious faith.